Okay, Jess Myers, thanks for coming to 1500ESPN.com, folks. Zulgad, Myers, Xcel Energy Center again.
Here we are again.
Wild, what do we have this time? 4-2, Friday evening, series tied at 2.
Late, early Saturday morning, as the case may be.
Yes, Game 5 will be in Chicago on a Sunday evening, series tied at 2. And like you
most
said,
important, Game 6 will be back here Tuesday.
Yeah, so you're right. Here we go again. Wild goes down 2-0 to Colorado. They come back here. You think, yeah, they might be dead. They win 2 games. Let's start with this one. What's more impressive to you? What the Wild did against Colorado and coming back from 2-0 and really played back-to-back games 3 and 4 here against Colorado. They didn't blow them out, but they outplayed them thoroughly. More impressive to you, that or what the Wild did here, which is Game 3 here on Tuesday night. Chicago comes in, and Chicago is an incredibly skilled team.
Absolutely.
Chicago tries to rope-a-dope them for 2 periods, basically lull them to sleep, the Wild that is, and then the Wild wakes up in the 3rd period and wins the game. So Chicago goes home and says, we can't do that again. We're going to come back in here on Friday night.
Try something different.
And outskill them. And a year ago, the Wild would have been dead. The way I see this, Jess, at least tonight on Friday night, Game 4, the Wild beat the Blackhawks at the Blackhawks game, and you could see it on the Blackhawks' faces at times, which is, this wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, you know, after Game 3, somebody mentioned the word regroup to a few of the Blackhawks, and they said, there's no reason to regroup. We're fine. You know, it's one game. Tonight, the Blackhawks themselves, unprompted, were talking about regrouping, changing their approach. I mean, they're frustrated. And part of it is they so thoroughly dominated the Wild in the first 2 games of the series. They've played great on home ice, just like the Wild have. Both teams now are 5-0 on home ice. So, you know, something's got to give if the Wild are going to win this series. But this is a frustrated hockey team. And I really think what the Wild have done in these 2 games is more impressive for the simple fact that in the first 2 games against Colorado, they were a lot closer. I mean, they came back from Colorado down 2-0, but feeling like a few things could have broken our way. We could have won, you know, 1 or 2 of those games in Colorado. They came back from Chicago a mess. And I mean, it wasn't just them saying we're in trouble. It was the rest of the hockey world saying Chicago is having their way in this series. Chicago looks like everything's going their way. The Wild, like you say, are outskilling them. They're frustrating them. They're getting good goaltending at times. You know, Brizgalov made the plays he had to make tonight, stopping a breakaway most notably that could have tied the game 3-3. So, you know, they've completely turned the tables in this series, and it surprised me.
Now, what's interesting about this series, though, is when you go back to the Game 1 a week ago, Friday in Chicago, that was a winnable game for the Wild. So it's a really weird series in this sense. There's a chance the Wild, they're not, but just like the Colorado series, could be up 3-1 in this series, but they still haven't won in Chicago. So where do the Blackhawks go from here? Because I will say this. If the Blackhawks were losing flat out to Koivu, Parise, Suter, I think they would say, well, the Wild's got some star power too. Those aren't the guys who are really beating the Blackhawks. I think what's frustrating the Blackhawks is Haula, Fontaine, Niederreiter. Coyle was magnificent, I thought, tonight. It's these players who we expect to be very good eventually, or good eventually, who the Blackhawks are allowing to skate with them. And if you're Chicago, I think you say to yourself, okay, if we're going to go back to the drawing board against these guys, the frustration for Chicago is Chicago wants to play that game, and they're getting outplayed at that game by guys like Eric Haula.
And now the pressure is, yeah, absolutely. And now the pressure is squarely on Chicago, I think, because, you know, they came out tonight thinking, yeah, we've had trouble here in Minnesota, but we play well at home. We'll go home. Everything's fine. If for some reason they get home Sunday, play a game in Chicago, and things aren't fine, then you've got some real doubt creeping in.
Yeah.
I do find it fascinating, like you say, that for the most part, Pominville, Parise, Koivu, those guys have not been huge offensive factors. Molson is out of the lineup now with this mysterious injury that, you know, for whatever reason, he's gone. And guys like Justin Fontaine, Matt Cooke tonight was an offensive force.
Next.
You know, well, let's talk about him.
Okay,
you know,
stat sheet. Matt Cooke, first of all, he sets up the first goal by Fontaine, and it's a pretty setup. 7 games out, by the way. Matt Cooke sits out 7 games with the suspension, comes back tonight. Also, let's see if I can find his statistical summary line here. He leads all teams with 5 hits, 3 block shots. He was all over the place tonight. And here's the scary thing. When Molson was playing on that line with Fontaine and Haula, he set up a goal a couple games ago. So not to take a lot away from him, but he looked like a veteran playing with 2 kids. Matt Cooke, I thought in the first period, especially tonight, matched the skating and energy of those 2 guys. That third line, if you take that third line's performance tonight, I think they were the Wild's best line.
They probably were, and you know, as much as Cooke has brought that, we got to talk about Jared Spurgeon, I think too. You know, he sets up a pretty goal by Nino Niederreiter.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the prettiest plays I've seen all year, and frankly, it wasn't a great goal. I mean, it was far post, a glove side. You know, the kind of save that Corey Crawford normally makes. He wasn't necessarily on tonight. You know, Spurgeon gets the nice kind of dagger power play goal in the third period. The defense on this team is amazing me because you look at the roles and how everything has changed. Brodin has not looked great in the playoffs. Nope. He was okay tonight. Suter, we're pretty sure he's playing hurt. You know, that arm goofy thing. He had a couple turnovers tonight.
Tonight, he's weird because he eats up so much ice time.
He does.
I'm hesitant to criticize him because my contention with Suter is this: he's like an offensive guard in football. You see when he messes up, and so you want to point him and say, "Oh man, Suter did this bad," but he plays so much, it's hard to criticize him. I thought tonight he was bad, and I don't think it was his fault. And he still set up a goal. But I want to say, if you look at the,
he was a +2 tonight.
I was going to say he was a +2. That's the weird thing.
That's amazing. I mean, what stands out is the 2 turnovers, but he was a +2.
The key to me with Ryan Suter tonight, no shots on goal, and he didn't appear to want to shoot. That's the telltale to me that something's wrong with that shoulder.
And I will say this too about the defense: he doesn't appear a lot on the stat sheet. Marco Scandella, I think, has been the Wild's best defenseman in the playoffs. Just steady play. He was the number 2 star tonight. Great play out of him. Question marks about what's going to happen on defense now, because for all intents and purposes, it looks like Ballard might be out again. Took a brutal check into the boards, went kind of face first into the glass. He was blinking and
potential
all kinds
concussion
of
again,
concussion-looking thing. So,
which he's had at least one this year, right?
Yeah, and so they may have to juggle. You know, Nate Prosser may be back in the lineup next game. You know, something like that going on.
Give me a quick wrap-up on the crowd here tonight, because this crowd was phenomenal. Everybody, as you said before we started this, everybody in both locker rooms mentioned it. Mike Yeo opened his post-game press conference with it. The chants of Crawford came as close as one can to the heyday of Met Center and Al Secord not being a favorite here.
We haven't seen this. You know, one thing I wrote about tonight for 1500 is Minnesota sports fans have been waiting for something to erupt about. We haven't seen 7-game series go this deep in 10 years, since the Timberwolves made their run in 2004 to the Western Conference Finals. We're seeing a fan base that is just hungry for this. They haven't had this in a long time.
But
we're not Boston, where we have a championship parade every 6 months.
This was fun tonight here, though.
This was a great atmosphere.
This is the first time since 2003 when I covered the Avalanche Canucks series, and not so much the Ducks, but where you're in the press box, and we're way up here, by the way. We are way up, where you could actually feel the crowd.
Yeah.
Like ordinarily in this
really
press box, you can't really feel the crowd too much. Tonight you could feel that crowd.
Absolutely. And it's fun. I mean, it was just a fun hockey game and a great atmosphere. And
it made up for the first 2 periods of Game 3, which were awful.
That's right.
But this was fun tonight.
I'm glad we get a Game 6, just because, you know, they'll be loud and it'll be a good time again.
All right, 4-2, Wild beats the Blackhawks tonight. Once again, they've come back from 2-0 down to even a series, second-round series, Chicago, Minnesota. Now 2-2, they will go to Chicago and play on Sunday, and as you said, they will come back here. We are sure to Game 6 in the series Tuesday night, right back here at the X. We'll be here. He's Jess Myers. Read his stuff, 1500ESPN.com. I'm Judd Zulgad. You can read my stuff. Also listen to me with Mackie weekdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Thanks for coming to the website, as always, and watching this fine video. Now I'm going to turn it off.